You go, Colin. You get to say
No, the music was still playing. I don't know. Welcome to Best in Faction.
It's a podcast about Warhammer 40K.
He's Colin.
Yeah.
I'm Mitch.
And I'm Lucas. I'm Chuck.
Are you guys not hearing the echoing back at us?
No, not at all.
Oh, I see. Aha! Hi, guys. Sorry for the incredibly professional intro.
Apologize for incredibly professional intros. Yeah. We worked hard on that. There was
I
3 takes.
I was getting all of the audio 5 seconds later.
Oh, does that help?
Yeah, it was not good. So, welcome to Best in Faction.
A podcast about Warhammer 40K.
The most professional podcast that has ever podcasted.
Oh, yeah.
Certainly one of the older ones now.
Oh, no.
Right?
We're long in tooth. I was looking at that opening graphic, and I'm like, man, we need to update those factions.
Well, not even just that. The previous one is so long ago. I don't know if you guys saw in the Discord, but okay, I've had this Best in Faction shirt that's just Mitch and I. It's really old. And I bought one that was too small for myself, and it's been hanging in my closet since then. And I think Chuck has been on the show for 5 years. I think it's that long. I think we only did the show without Chuck for under a year. I think.
It feels like more than that. I don't know.
I don't know.
I feel like around a year. But
yeah. So I found this shirt. So I'm talking to Jason last night, and my brain goes, "Hey, you have a shirt that'll fit him that is in your closet." I go get it, and hand it to him. What made my brain do that? I don't know. He was very excited about it, though. It's a collector's item because
Oh yeah.
But anyways, I'm a commissar on it. I'm the army that I own that I'm the least likely to play. That's who I am on the shirt. But Mitch, you're a Space Wolf. We have all those independently. We can just make you a Space Wolf again on the logo.
Oh no, I think now I need to be a Grey Knight.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, that's definitely the army that's calling to me right now.
It's real fun.
Okay. So here we go. We haven't done this in a while, which is kind of exciting. And it used to be that we were the only show on the network, and we had to cover everything. So we don't have to cover everything now, but I do have some things I think we should cover. So we're going to do some quick hits here at the top. We're going to talk about Charity Hammer. We're going to talk about the Balance Slate. We're going to talk about the Tacoma Open in 5 days. And then most of the show, we're going to go through 10th edition in a different sort of way. I've played, I don't know, somewhere around a dozen games of 10th edition. I'm not sure how many. Mitch, you played in that two-day GT, right?
Yep, 5 games.
Have you gotten to play more than that at all?
No, just those 5.
How many games do you think you're at, Chuck, roughly?
Probably about the same, around a dozen or so. I think 7 and 3 for this weekend, and a few in between. So yeah.
So Nick says it's in 5 days. That's a reality check I wasn't ready for.
No.
Yeah, I am so not ready hobby wise, and I have company coming in tonight, so I'm going to have 2 nights to do the hobby, and it's going to be awful.
I went to an RGT yesterday, and so about Friday night at about 9 p.m. I thought, I'm definitely going to have to change my list because I'm not painting this shit. All right.
So between the 3 of us, we've played 27 games of 10th edition. The only problem with that is that Chuck and I played some of those together. But anyways, so we're going to talk about 10th edition, and we're going to try to do it as more of a, hey, we're really old. Hey, we're veteran gamers, and we've done this before. Last night I'm playing a board game with some friends that are all brilliant, super smart friends. And it was amusing how quickly I remembered the rules and the level at which I retained it and the speed at which I could play compared to them. Because, as I pointed out to one of them, my entire life is work, family, games. That's it. Sometimes I watch TV. But my life is
incredibly specialized. What do you want?
Yeah, it's I've been working on this. You want me to remember a game rule? I've been training for this. Anywho, before we go in, I do want to give ourselves a little bit of advertisement here. If you guys like any of the shows on the network, the best way to support us is to subscribe on YouTube or Patreon. Either way, you get to us. Both are best in tabletop. It's $10 a month. It gets you access to our Discord. It doesn't get you anything else right now. It gets you access to our Discord. That's what we do. There is a secret section of the YouTube that you also get access to, but we don't actually put things in there. So completely honest pitch. It's $10 a month to support us. You can come to our Discord, and it's a great Discord. People are really friendly. If you want a Discord that is a good place, come to us. If you want a Discord that is people complaining all the time and ranting, don't come to us because we don't
You want
actually
a
let
Discord
that
where
happen.
everybody knows your name.
Yeah, that's right. Do. I'm not going to sing
That's
any
how
more
old
of that.
we are. We got to.
I'm not going to sing any more of that because YouTube will literally catch it somehow. the robot AI will just be like, okay. Anywho, speaking of incredible, I found an app that can look at a plant to tell you what plant it is. Freaking living in the future. Insane.
That's super cool.
Okay. So the other way you could support us is you can go to our store at bestintabletop.com/store and you can buy clothing. Some of it has really neat things on it from episodes. Some of it's our logos. I'm actually wearing the Best in Faction shirt right now. Unlike the intro to the show that we just used, it has the correct Chuck Ork on it. And it is also extremely comfortable. Chuck, you have these shirts too, right? Really comfy, right?
Yeah. I often look at our store just looking for another design that I want to add to it because the shirt is good enough that I want more.
You might be interested that I can just make whatever design you want.
Yeah, I know. That's a matter of getting my shit together.
Okay. We are going to do a Charity Hammer shirt for the first time, I think.
Hell yeah.
Because we have a store, so it seems stupid not to. And then we can just kick the profit to Charity Hammer, right? It's not.
Yeah.
Can we get Charity Hammer hats that just have a tiny little John Lennon right here, like leaping with the hammer? And that's all it is.
That'd be dope, actually.
Yeah,
that'd be really good.
Don't let me forget
John Lennon. Yeah, don't let me forget about that, Mitch. I think that's a great idea.
Because I'd wear the hell out of that.
Right? I like hats too. And the hat I wear to meetings and stuff when my hair's not done, I've noticed is really brown in a lot of places. So that's not good. Anywho, so let's start off by talking about the balance slate, because that's the big thing that everybody is excited about. It's not really a balance slate. First of all, that's the wrong name. It's just not what it is. So GW said some things are wrong. We're going to fix them. Specifically, we're going to fix Fate Dice, Eldar, and Towering. And Indirect. Those are the things they said they were going to fix. And we waited, and we waited, and we waited, and they fixed those 4 things.
They attempted to fix.
Yes, they took action against those 4 things.
Took action.
I'm sorry.
Much
I used the wrong word. They addressed those things. They like wrote it on the envelope. Dear Eldar, here's a light slap on the wrist. We love you, GW.
Yeah, I don't know if it was adequately addressed. I don't know that letter's getting anywhere. But yeah, they definitely were focused on those things. Other than the indirect things they missed for raising points and the towering things they missed for raising points.
What towering things did they miss? I haven't heard that.
It's one of the Necron ones.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe the Monolith. I know the Monolith is towering now.
I believe the Monolith did not get bumped up in points.
Yeah, the Monolith is really neat. I don't know if it's actually good, but I played against it, and it can grab a unit near it and then put that unit somewhere else near it. And I think that's a really good tool for Necrons. I think that's really cool. Mm-hmm. I haven't done This Week in 40K yet this week and seen the actual 10th edition is rolling tournaments. And I know Necrons have done well. I heard that. So I don't know if they're using monoliths. Evidently, Genestealer Cult has done really well this weekend, which we'll talk about in just a second. So, yes. So I think it is, before we talk about the balance, I think it is fair to say, so we don't have to spend time on it, that all 3 of us believe that the game is wildly out of balance still. Right? Okay. I don't think any of us were expecting this patch to fix that.
I think it was going to do what it did, which make it a little better.
Yeah. I think it made it more than a little bit better. I actually think that it makes it... I think that while Eldar are still too strong, I think it makes them beatable in games where they weren't beatable before. Mm-hmm. Because... So the Eldar changes, right? Things went up in points. Really important things went up in points. Fire Prism, Night Spinner, D-Cannon, Wraith Knight. The 4 most broken data sheets in the book, all of them went up reasonable amounts of points. The Knight went up over 100. Things went up, okay? And then they said, Fate Dice, 1 per turn. Period. End of that. 1 per phase?
1 per phase.
Sorry.
1 per turn.
It's 1 per phase isn't actually that much better. But Eldar only shoot, you see. So it's 1 per phase. But it still triggers crits, which I didn't think it would. That's how I've been playing, that it wouldn't do that. Yeah. And then they did some things to Towering and Indirect. Just talking about Eldar for a second. If you think that the points aren't a lot, most of the lists I'm working on went up 300 points. So it's not minor at all. If you are playing against a Eldar player that does not have 3 fire prisms, that's weird because they're that good. They're one of the most broken data sheets in the game. So they raised them like 30 points. And they're like, here we go, they're 30 points higher. And I said, well, I'm still taking 3. I had actually hypothesized that they'd have to go up like 80 points apiece for me to not take 3 of them. That's how good they are. So they did add like 300 points to Eldar lists, and that does help a lot.
We did several practice games where you're playing 100, 200 points down with the Eldar, and they were still very challenging games. So I feel like that.
Oh, we lost Chuck. Say that again, Chuck?
No, you just stuttered for a second there, Colin.
There you go. You're back now. Just restart.
Yeah, I was just saying that we played several practice games together where you played like 200 points down, and they were still very challenging games. So we're like the point change is like in the space that we were looking at.
Yeah.
But we were also playing with you not triggering crits, which is, I think, significantly more impactful than.
That's the big thing.
Well, on the other hand, you got enough. Like in that world, you were able to use the for the damage roll instead, and so when you did get a crit, it was just monstrous. So like,
yeah, because if I got a crit with the Wraith Knight, or with a Wraith Knight, sure, I could just be like 10 mortals.
Yeah,
right. That's not okay.
It was crippling either way. So,
yeah,
good mechanic.
So it's a significant nerf, and I don't think it's enough. Because I think the Eldar are now very solidly in second place with a big gap after them. I'll talk about why it's second place here in a minute. But they're profoundly in second place. Really strong, chilling out in second place. They can't even see third place. They don't even know what third place looks like. Mm-hmm. So, yes, it moved them from 1 to 2, but that wasn't, I think, what people are looking for. That said, my opinion on Eldar, since I play them by far the most here, is that it was going to be really hard to address. And they took a stab at it. And if the win rate's too high, I think we'll get an emergency fix before 3 months from now. Yes, the data slate's in 3 months. I think that there's 2 armies that are going to justify that fix much, much earlier than that 3 months. And I think Eldar is one of them. Comments on Eldar, guys?
I think that pretty much sums it up. I think they went from S plus to S plus minus a little bit.
I think we're seeing the limitation of them wanting to sell index card or like the datasheet cards because they're not going in and changing mechanics. It seems like with like on units, maybe. Like they changed the faction mechanic on Eldar a little bit, but that's not a data card. And everywhere else, all they did was adjust points, which is my big critique. Is that points like aren't necessarily the way to curb something unless you want to just eliminate it from existence in the game. Like it is one lever for sure, but I looking at what they did to indirect and towering, I don't think it's the correct lever.
Yeah,
I think it is not because it's the right way to solve that problem, but I think it's by far the fastest, most responsible. Like it's easy to just raise the points.
Sure.
If you're going to change mechanics, I'm hoping there's a lot more work and effort and thought that goes into that. So if you're in a hurry to make the points change, which I think they were, I think that's the way to go. I do think the long-term fix, those mechanics should be more fun.
Yeah.
And be toned down.
Yeah. I agree with Chuck. I don't think it has to do with the data cards, but it could, only because they did actually release an errata. This is what's wrong on the data cards. And they could have just done that for whatever was changed. But I agree with you that I would have liked to see mechanic changes more than we did. But at the unit level, I don't know that there's enough data yet. I think that's the real problem.
I'm saying like going fire prisms need to be within 12 inches of each other to all shoot from one. Something small, not saying it has to be a huge thing. But we saw no changes of that nature that I'm aware of. And
the new terrain actually does a lot to help you there. But we'll talk about the new terrain.
I mean, the terrain is also is super variable based on game stores and towering and how all that's going to get handled. There's going to be a lot of issues. There's going to be a lot of unfun moments that it feels like if Games Workshop had put some more thought in ahead of time or addressed this differently, they could have reduced that significantly more. Because the points changes don't make towering any less unfun.
Exactly.
And that's the problem with it, right?
Yep, I agree.
Like, more than winning, like fine, win ratios and stuff. Even if Knights become 50% win ratio, they're going to be a gatekeeper that is really unfun for your regular tournament, large tournament attendee. They're like, oh man, I'm playing against Knights, I can't hide. Or a bunch of TOs have to make rulings on their terrain to say, well, this is how we're handling it, and then there's room for interpretation, and that leads to unfun possible. I just feel like they could have mitigated this a lot more with a few modifications to towering. For example, making it so that towering doesn't work on infantry, or just something so that certain things are more hideable. Because infantry theoretically can be hiding in all the little nooks and crannies and, not so visible. But, yes, they can obviously see the tank on the other side of the wall.
Yeah.
There could be, a lot of middle ground that, and again, maybe they're just waiting and maybe, we just need to wait for that. That's totally fine. Those are my critiques of what the fixes we have right now are, though.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Chuck, anything?
No, I mean, I agree that, it's a mechanic that isn't good. But I also think it's fine to do the quick and easy patch while you try to figure out the longer term thing. So I'm pretty accepting of that.
Well, the only really good solution I've heard is remove towering, and I don't think that they were going to do that.
No,
I like toe in for a piece of terrain. It's fine. If you touch a piece of terrain, you're able to shoot through it and be shot through it. Is fine to me. That way you can still hide. You can't be shooting people across the board and stuff, and it changes the game to a familiar state for us that is also a lot more adjudicatable. So I think that still gives it a thing, because if you take that away from Knights, they can't shoot things. Like, if you look at how dense those tables are and they have to get a direct line of sight on something, like you're really tanking them. So they need something. I think something like that works better.
I think that's fair. I don't like towering because, well, first of all, I don't like Knights, but I don't like towering because, and I don't like Knights not because the models are dumb or the players are bad. Just Knights are bad for the game. We've talked about that a lot. So the problem with Knights is with towering, the giant model that you're doing line of sight from is huge and hard to like really get your eye behind, and they're looking for 1 millimeter of shoulder pad.
Yeah. Like, having discussions about how the indirect gun that you put on top of the Knight is probably the best one to have, but what you're actually going to put on there is the autocannons, because it's much taller, so it makes your towering better.
Oh,
like,
man.
When you make it to that space, and that's a legitimate strategic discussion, you've caused a problem.
Yeah. So I don't like towering, but it's what we get for a while, and I think that we're going to see Knights solidly in third place. That's my prediction. The problem with Knights is that they put the toughnesses too high, and so now they're in they stat check armies really hard, and a lot of armies are just like, well, like the fact that a couple of the Knights are T13 is wildly not okay. Like, T13 is way too high for a vehicle to be, because there's bunches of armies that don't have anything higher than strength 12. So you're saying your army doesn't get to win this on better than 5s, and I don't think that's fair.
I mean, if you're like as a Grey Knights player, I played against Knights in the little GT thing I went to, and like, I am a wet noodle against anything that is T12 because I need 6s to wound. So
but even at T8, your army's like, leave that alone.
No, T8's actually fine. Yeah, because if you have Dread Knights and you have the heavy side cannons at strength 10, flat 3 damage, there's a lot of stuff you can do with, like, T8. I had no issues with. Like, Terminators easily, like, we're consistently killing a War Dog every turn. But the big Knights, just floppy sadness, like, just all of my halberds just wilted. Like, it did not work. Which forced me to completely change how I looked at Grey Knights and how I was going to address that. And I love that challenge and that problem to solve.
Score all the points. Get 100. See if they can do that too.
Well, I also just came up with a way to deal like an average of between 12 and 24 mortal wounds a turn. Yeah. And so the Care Bear stare is strong, and that's what I'll be doing.
Yeah.
Somebody's says that Yinkarn didn't get touched, or Hornets. I don't think Hornets are that big of a deal. I just don't. I don't see how they're any more broken than any of the other second tier broken stuff in Eldar. I don't think they need an. Oh, Mitch goes away. I don't think that they need a.
I'm still here. I'll be right back.
Okay. Anyways, so yeah, I don't think Hornets are a big deal. I think they're good. I don't think that they're amazing. The Incarn, okay. The Incarn is a massive feel bad, and that's why people want it nerfed. It's not because it actually is unfair for its points. So yes, the Incarn can teleport, and yes, it can get into you, and yes, it can kill something. The problem with the Incarn is once it kills something, it dies. Because it isn't going to get away before they shoot it, and it isn't that durable. It's durable, but it's not that durable. I can't imagine it living through that turn, and so you've taken a 300-point thing, and you have traded it for something. That's feel bad for your opponent because you teleported in and traded for something that they probably aren't happy about, but that's not a first-round nerf type problem, in my opinion. So that's my thoughts on the Incarn. Super cool, very good, but not the level of broken that Fire Prisms, the Wraith Knight, D-Cannons, and Night Spinners were, which is the things that got addressed. And frankly, there were entire Eldar lists that were only those 4 things, basically. So I think that's where we're at on that. Yes, I would have liked to see more, but let me talk about my big issue with the patch. Genestealer Colt was just as good as Eldar. I had been playing it. I took it to an RTT. It is just as good as Eldar. I have lost 1 game with Genestealer Colt out of 5, and it was because I was playing against Knights and I played it wrong. If I played it correct and remembered all of my rules, Hank and I agree that I win by a mile. So the problem with Genestealer Colt is that they are so good at doing everything, playing the mission, taking up the board, and then for some reason, they're like the highest damage punch army in the game. So they just table you off the table. It's really dumb. But we knew they were that broken. But people weren't playing them and beating Eldar with them because they're harder to play. And so Eldar got slapped, and indirect fire across the game got slapped, which we didn't actually talk about. And yet, Genestealer Colt just hid in the shadows and watched that happen.
Might have been their plan the whole time.
It could have been.
Generations in the making even.
The feedback I'm getting from my friends is that they're now not losing with Genestealer Colt. The other thing is the terrain, the new terrain from GW. I understand that the things on the plates is different by game store, but the plates are supposed to be the same size, or at least close to it. So we played with those, preparing for Tacoma. It is extremely dense. And it is so dense that is a massive buff to Genestealer Colt. Because that means you've got your unit and the bomb guys are coming in and you're going to try to overwatch them. But sadly, all 10 of those guys can see one model in your unit because of how the corners work. So many pieces of terrain being hard squares and rectangles means that all of those 90-degree corners are rough for line of sight. So I think the terrain's really heavy. I like that because it's going to make infantry better than they are right now. It's also going to make close combat better than it is right now, but it also makes Genestealer Colt better than they are right now, and I don't think that's what we needed.
Oh, good. Sorry.
No, you go ahead.
Oh, I will be interested to see how many TOs actually adopt that terrain because of I'm not saying they will or they won't. I know some are already planning on it, but I know some are already like, I've got all the terrain from the last time that you set up things, and they just don't want to. They don't have the capital or motivation right now or ability, different things, different people, to change to that. So I wonder how much we're going to see what terrain people have, really wildly changing the outcomes.
When's the last time GW told us what terrain to put in a tournament? Because I understand they have their own tournaments.
Yeah.
But I don't think they've ever, in the 6 years I came back for, I don't think they've ever told us what terrain to put on the table for tournaments.
Well, no, the people who bought the stuff that they were imitating what GW had been doing before.
Okay.
And then you have other people who have just bought lots of a set of sets of terrain that worked for 8th and 9th, and they're like, that's thousands and thousands of dollars that they can't just change necessarily. So there's definitely going to be quite a bit of
the adjustment is. I know personally, I'm far more interested in playing on the GW tables than with random stuff that I went and played yesterday, and they didn't have the plexiglass made yet, so they're just like, we're going to use our old terrain with line of sight blocking on the bottom floor, and it really, in comparison to the games that Colin and I played using the new setup, it paled as far as intricacy goes.
Well, and that's what I'm saying is that's going to be interesting to see where all of that kind of falls.
Yeah. There'll be like a hobby lag effect on terrain.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
For sure. Well, there is good news here because I do have a lot of the same terrain everybody else has. I have ETC terrain, I have WTC terrain, I have custom terrain from our local tournament, and we just put the plates out and just put terrain on them. And I had terrain to go on the plates. Like it wasn't that big of a deal. I have slightly less terrain than I did before, so I would have to supplement to have as many tables as I did. Oh, angry dogs.
The thin cardboard one that you have.
He got caught getting
is
into
WTC.
The gray cardboard, yeah, it's WTC.
That one went incredibly well onto the GW, the new GW style. Like the pieces fit pretty much straight to the plexiglass sections. I thought that was really nice.
And I don't think that's a coincidence.
Oh, it's probably true.
Because we know that GW has been talking to WTC the whole time.
No, so yeah, probably.
I do want to say, because I think this is fair, I don't think the complaints that this isn't play tested is actually unfair. Like, I think that they released a thing that wasn't ready to release. Like, I understand we're trying to be positive, but like, let's be honest as well. Like like nobody played Eldar the way that they were at launch and thought this is fine. Like that is not a thing that happened, or they did it and GW said, no, I think you're wrong. So one of those two things happened and neither of those things are okay. So let's just be fair that we share the community's disappointment, I think.
Yeah.
Would be my
I had some level of expectation for this. It's kind of how it always is right at the beginning. I do think that's always such an unfair statement, right? Because it's a sliding scale. It's not yes or no, right? So it is yes, but I think the level is actually pretty high in comparison to the last index of disparity.
Yeah, I think the core rules are actually better than people are giving them credit. No, I think there's some really problems with them, but they're mostly great. Yeah, the game's quite fun. It's really the balance of the armies that's my issue at this point. Mm-hmm. More than even towering.
I think that because they exported so much of the special rules to data sheets, that's why we're it's all of a sudden how you point units, how all of that works is wildly more important because they always get to do their thing. Mm-hmm. And so when you're buying that unit, you're also effectively buying the stratagem that goes on that unit, 2 or 3 times in that game, probably whatever, you're planning on it doing. Uh-huh. So the value proposition is they've made it a lot more complex for themselves to actually balance.
I actually think it's easier, but there's a whole philosophical discussion because there's very few things to balance against. You can look at this sheet and be like, this is what it's going to do. And it's probably going to have 1 or 2 of these good strats that are in this faction. And that's it. As I heard before, where it's like, okay, you have this one thing, but now you got to do 30 strats and make sure it fits all of them. Mm-hmm. So I think it's kind of just depends on how your mind works.
Sure.
But
yeah.
But yeah, no, I that's why through this entire launch, I've been like, I'm going to have fun and things will be wonky. And there are the specific words I have been using, it was very intentional that I don't expect to win. I don't that's not what I'm there for. I'm there to learn the game. I'm there to have make friends. If you set those expectations correctly and you're not thinking about, okay, I really think I've solved it. I'm the smartest guy in the room and I'm going to take this thing. If you go in with that attitude, you're going to have a bad time because no one solved it yet because it's not a complete system. It's still being all of the rough edges are still being sanded off and they're still defining a few of the shapes of it. And so to try and go and do that so early on is premature.
Mm-hmm. Indirect fire.
Yeah.
Almost everything went up in points unless your name's the Thunderfire Cannon. There's a few other things that didn't go up.
There's a few things.
Well, mortar squads are bad, so whatever.
Mortar squads are not bad.
Yes, they are. We'll talk about that later. It doesn't.
They can hit on twos.
They're in guard.
Yeah.
Actually, guard won an RTT yesterday.
Yeah, guard are pretty solid.
I don't know about
I was
that.
there.
They won an RTT yesterday.
It's one of the people who walked over to get there.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, all indirect went up. I think that's great. I don't think that solves the problem, but man, is it great that they can have less things in their army if they have indirect. That's my opinion.
I mean, yeah, I don't think that they did enough for some of the Forge World Imperial Guard stuff.
That'll come out.
Yeah. I don't think it's not at the top of my concern list.
Yeah.
The Thunderfire Cannon is mainly the Thunderfire Cannon getting missed felt like a big miss but I'm not like my problem with indirect is the volume that you can bring can just clear out any of your opponent's like non-hardened infantry so easily.
Yep.
That it sort of just sterilizes the board of their scoring opportunity, and they're like there's some really oppressive things you can do with it still with guard. And I understand Colin doesn't think it's good.
No, I do. I do think it's good. I don't think that they're top tier, but I do think they're good.
Oh no, I'm not saying
I think they're solidly in the pack of people that are all together.
I think that there's a lot of tech and guard that needs to be explored. And
I'm sure that's true.
One of the things that didn't get touched is actually Baby Knights. I played a game against Chaos Knights yesterday, and the opening move was, well, okay, I moved you all into position. I'm hidden. Fire all of the missile hats at your 3-man squad of Zangor on discs. Those are evaporated. Here you go. Like, just there goes one scoring unit. It's kind of what I'm just talking about, right? Like, it's just like there goes a scoring opportunity. Now you have to get something else over there. And that may not, let's say 45-point unit's not a big deal, but now something else that is a big deal has to go do the job it was planning on doing. So, like, indirect is still good. You just have to, get the right opportunities instead of it just being always the right choice. And I think that's where it needs to be at.
Yeah. Let's use one of the most broken armies in the game. Eldar. Because of the indirect in the game right now, they don't get to play with Banshees. They don't get to play with Scorpions. They don't get to play with Fire Dragons. Fire Dragons I don't think are actually good. Those units can get used, but they have to be in a Wave Serpent, which is like 160 points.
Yeah. Why not just buy 2 tanks instead?
Exactly. So, exactly. So the problem there is you've made it so that people have to be mounted. Have to be not mounted, but have to be armored. They have to be in an armored transport. And those are all too expensive. That's my issue. Certainly it's too expensive for Eldar. And I think they're too expensive for Drukhari as well, which is really sad because that's like their whole jam.
They're not too expensive for orcs.
Yeah, it's true. That's true. They're not too expensive for orcs. So I just think that because indirect fire, we knew when we saw the rules that they weren't there, that they weren't more disadvantaged. And also Guard has so many ways to just be like, hey, what if I didn't care about the indirect penalty?
What if I didn't care and I got +1? How would that make you feel?
Yeah. And
all of my 6s auto wound you and generate extra hits. How would you feel?
Exactly. So, I agree with them. I don't think it's in a good state. Should we move on?
Yeah.
Okay. Charity Hammer. It's 2 months out, and I haven't talked about it at all. So this week you're going to start seeing a lot of publicity for Charity Hammer. It is a very different vibe than it was the last couple of years. Let me explain. First of all, so early on in Charity Hammer, it was a bunch of people playing on tables in my house, and we didn't do commentary. So we had the players talking to the listeners, the viewers. Everybody was in the same place. We were all walking in and out of each other's games. It was a very house party vibe. As Charity Hammer evolved, I let it get up to be a bigger and bigger and more complicated thing. Until last year when it was very complicated and we had massive tech problems. And in the end, we didn't make the thing that I wanted us to make. By the way, that hurt a lot. It's very hard for me to fail to the degree that we did great. We raised a lot of money. People had a lot of fun. People like to watch it. I feel like I failed. And so that's hard for me. Part of that was the tech problems. And part of that was that we got to a vibe where people weren't having the level of fun and interaction with the audience we had before. So that's one problem. The second problem is it used to be that I could get all the best 40K players to come. And I can still get amazing 40K players to come, but for the GT to be the hardest GT anymore, it won't be. The amount of good players in the world has gone up significantly. 40K has grown a lot. And there's now a lot of people that are better than me, rather than a handful of people that are better than me. And so it's hard to be like, okay, I'm going to get all of the best players in the US. Well, there's 16 people on Team USA. We got 4 of them coming. That's great, but it's not like we have 12 of them coming. So so at first I was hurt by that. Not hurt, but I was like, oh, that really takes away part of the appeal. I think I'm wrong. I don't think it does. I think we pivot from being I think we pivot from being the best generals to the best players. Like the people that are coming to Charity Hammer are good humans. That is the rule. And they are going to be good on camera, and they are going to be good talking to the audience, and they're going to play 40K at a very high level. Will it be the highest level that ever leveled? No. Not every game, but it'll be at a high level. Nobody that's coming is bad at competitive 40K. Also, we've shifted young, which is interesting. There's a lot, the average age of Charity Hammer has gone down significantly. So that's also interesting. So it's going to be a different sort of thing, but what we're going to do is we're going to do less streams and no commentary. We'll probably do commentary on the final of the GT because we'll have the players that lost in the semifinals do commentary for the final because that was really great last time. So we're going to do that. But other than that, we're not going to do commentary. We're going to let the players talk to the microphone. And I think that that's actually going to be much easier to follow. And then the final thing that we're going to do is have an Instagram or something that's giving just raw updates throughout the tournament, throughout the weekend. This is what's happening. This game's been replaced with this. Just a way to keep people informed as things change and things break. Unfortunately, things will probably break. So Charity Hammer, 9/14 to 9/17. Thursday at 2:00 on the 14th. We'll go hard. We'll do, I don't know.
Weekend.
Oh, good. How exciting. How old will you be?
35.
All right. So we're going to have
halfway there.
We'll have some games on Thursday, and then Friday and Saturday will be the bulk of the GT. Sunday will be the finals, and then the rest of it will fill in. It's going to be 24 hours a day like it always is. It's going to be the whole time. We're going to get people up at 3:00 in the morning and make them play 40K for you. It's going to be the vibe it normally is. And we're going to raise money for Child's Play. So that's the plan. And it's going to be great. And it's going to be really, really fun. And I am maximizing fun over scope. So the final thing I'll say about Charity Hammer, because it is extremely exciting, is that Joe from War Games Live will be here, and he's going to do one of our 2 streams.
Hell yeah.
So that alone will greatly increase the quality of our show, of our podcast, of our stream.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Charity Hammer. Tacoma. The Tacoma Open is the first big tournament of 10th edition, and it's here. First of all, that's weird. Second of all, 450 people. What? If you had asked me 6 months ago, how many people do you think the Tacoma Open could get if it really went bonkers? I'd be like, 250 would be a lot. I think the largest tournament in Washington State I've played in was 110 people. I don't know how big Tacoma was last year, but it was not 450 people.
I think it was 2 something.
Yeah.
It was 2 something.
So pretty incredible. Pretty amazing.
I think that's one of the reasons
that
Tacoma was one of the few events that like got renewed. Like they did a lot of there were a lot of places they just did one and done. But I think they saw that there's a huge market and demand here, and they're like, yeah, we can grow this. We can make it something bigger. And that's kind of, my guess is what they were trying to do by having events, one at a time, one-time only events in cities. Is they're trying, they're just doing testers and seeing, okay, we can plant our flag here.
I've been going to a lot of stores just to do RTTs and meet different little pockets of people. And I'll tell you, like at every store I go, it's full of people who are sort of in the up and coming category, right? Like, lots of people who are like, I'm just going to these tournaments, and they're all really excited to be going to the Tacoma Open. Like, this is going to be the first big, like, 2-day, 3-day thing for a lot of people in the local area. And I think that's great, particularly because of the way they do the brackets. A lot of those people won't, like, they're not necessarily ready for, like, a big GT win, but, like, they can get into their bracket, and I think they'll compete really well in that space. So,
yeah, I actually really like the brackets. I know they're a little unpopular. I do not like the ghost round. As someone who thinks he might do well enough, I may not. I'll talk about that in a second. But as someone who might do well enough, I'm not excited about the potential that I might have to play 4 games of 40K on Saturday. That sounds miserable to me, but it certainly cemented the do I drive back and forth or do I stay down there? Because if I get done playing 40K at midnight and have to drive 2 hours each way to get home, I'm going to be really upset. So, yeah. Let's each talk about. Are you going, Mitch? You talked about going.
Yeah, I don't think I'll be making it. Probably not, but I might try and drive up and see everybody on Saturday or something. But
Oh, all right, cool. So, Chuck, you're going. Talk to us about your expectations for Chuck.
Basically nothing. I want to go and have a really good time over the course of 3 days. I've got about a 50-50 rate, a win rate, intense with with practice games and all that stuff. I don't have any sort of competitive expectations. I'm not focused enough to really get myself up into the 75% area where I think I can reach to. So I'm going to have a good time. I'm really excited because it's been a while since we've had people like in the area, right? Like there'll be a bunch of people that I haven't seen in a long time. It'll be nice to catch up with them. But mostly, if I can just continue to have a good time and do that much social over the course of one weekend, I think that sounds great.
No. So Noah just commented and said, I expect Chuck to hate his knees and remember to sit by round 3.
No. If I remember to sit by round 3, I've already lost. That battle begins at round 1. You got to sit down while you're feeling good, not wait till you feel bad and then start sitting down.
Yeah. By the way, everybody, if you haven't listened to our show long enough, hydrate. Start now.
Yeah.
The hydration that you need does not start the morning of the tournament. It starts days and days and days before. Make sure that your body is well hydrated so that when you get stressed and you get sweaty and there's, just make sure that you've got the energy that you need to succeed.
Yeah.
Also, bring a spare pair of socks for each day. Change them halfway through, like at lunch. Gonna make you feel like a new man.
My feet actually don't sweat, so I don't have that. I don't know. So, okay. I have a lot of thoughts on Colin at the Tacoma Open, which I'm sure surprises Chuck greatly.
Yeah, I've never known you to overthink a tournament.
So, on the pro, for me doing well, I almost always do well at a tournament in Washington State. In fact, can't remember the last one I did not well at. But there's a lot more people at this one, and that's understandable. The bigger thing for me is, and obviously I'm playing Eldar, and it's wildly broken, and so there will be tons of games where I'll just be like, lol. I will tell you I'll tell you my trick for making that more fun for my opponent, because I found a good trick that I used with Gene Steelacold at the RTT, and it really worked. But so I'm playing a really broken thing. I know I'm good at 40K. I've played a dozen games of 10th edition. That's probably 3 times as many or more than the vast majority of the people that are there. So I could just presume that I'm going to do well. I really want to do well. I don't think I'll be happy if I'm not in the top couple brackets. But I have not done even a 3-day tournament since 2019. Actually, 2020, because I did LVO in January of 2020.
So how many games is this event?
8, maybe 9.
So 2 on Friday.
It's 3-3-2, and if you do well, it's 3-4-2. Because you get punished. You get punished for doing well.
I want to do as well as I can without triggering that.
Exactly. Oh my God, Noah's no socks only sandals take is terrible.
Oh, actually, man. that is the way I go.
What a terrible take that is. Well, I don't own sandals that are supportive enough. It would wreck my feet.
You have to get, what is the Olukai or whatever they are? They're handmade in Hawaii. They're leather. Oh. They're much firmer, really nice and supportive. That's what I wear when I TO LVO and stuff. It's all day, every day.
Use your promo code FeetHurt to get 20% off.
Actually, no. Unfortunately, Feet Hurt was already taken by a sports podcast. It's Feet Hurt Nerd. So
FeetHurt.com is probably porn, if we're being honest.
Yeah, don't go there.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
or do enjoy yourself.
So those are the pros for Colin doing well. But I haven't done something like this in a really long time. I'm the heaviest I've been in a really long time. That's usually not great for my ability to do well because I get really tired really quickly. And more than any of that is I've had an extremely challenging past few years for myself, for my person. And I am extremely anxious, and I don't like being anxious when I play 40K. So I am legitimately concerned that I'll have fun. Like that's where I'm at. I'm concerned that I will get frustrated or tired and not be able to function. And I've missed so many tournaments because of health and family and such that I don't want to drop and I don't want to not go. I want to go. I want to see my friends. I want to get back into the swing of playing in big giant tournaments because I haven't done that a lot lately. I want to play my Eldar. I want to do all of this. I want to push a Wraith Knight around the table. I want to do the things. And I'm just really going to try to focus on making sure that I'm having fun and my opponent's having fun. And that's just going to be a hard focus to make because I think I'm going to get wiggy at some point during the weekend. And it's going to be hard for me to undo the wigginess. So that's going to be a thing. I got wiggy playing Hank at the RTT, and I was really mad at myself about it. So Hank and I had a really stressful game. We play each other really hard. We both have personalities that can rub each other the wrong way when we get heated. So, anyways, so that's what I think about the Tacoma Open. For me, it's going to be, can I have fun? That's going to be the goal. So if you see me in like the fourth bracket, hopefully I'm having fun. That's where I want to be. So yeah, that's Tacoma. It's like 4 to 5 days from now. Pretty crazy, honestly.
It's very, very intimidatingly close.
Yeah, with it being a 3-day, there's no way I can do that right now. I'm just.
Yeah. Sounds like a big lift, doesn't it? So I do want to talk about the Wraith Knight. I wasn't going to talk about taking it. I have been against the Wraith Knight. I was just wrong. We'll leave it at that. I didn't understand all of the tech. I got educated yesterday. I was just wrong. That's fine. I've been wrong before. But we talked on recent shows. It is really dumb. We talked on recent shows about Chuck and my extremely close friend. Well, my close friend, Chuck's extremely close friend. I don't want to diminish the multi-decade relationship that Chuck had. Our friend Vince passed away. We talked about this, and I don't want to dwell on that. But Vince was an amazing human, and he had a love for two things I'm aware of at 40K, Chuck, but maybe you can focus this a little bit. But I believe that he loved Knights and Eldar. Mm-hmm. That those are his two favorite things, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So an Eldar Knight would be the ideal thing. And so what we've decided is that I'm going to play with my models, but I'm going to bring one of Vince's Wraith Knights. It's magnetized, so we can put the right war gear on it. And I'm going to just call it Vince the whole tournament. Because Vince's soul has been put into this Wraith Knight to continue fighting. So Vince gets to keep going to tournaments in Wraith Knight form. Or at least one tournament, because I don't think I'll ever take a Wraith Knight to tournament again. But Vince is going to go to a tournament, and I'm going to refer to the Wraith Knight as Vince the whole time. And I just love that. It makes me so happy. So I was excited to share that with y'all. It makes me happy. I came up with it in the middle of the night, and I literally said to Chuck, I have no idea if this is offensive or rude. I don't know. This is an idea I had. I think it's good, but you could be welcome to rain on my parade. All right. So
I think it's going to be great. But I do want to go back. You were going to tell us one cheap trick for having fun with your opponents.
Thank you. So when your stuff is broken, just own it. So when I was playing Gene Stealer Cold at the RTT, I'd say things like, now I'm going to do this, which is wildly acceptable and not at all unfair for the game. or, okay, I'm now going to throw my bombs at you. You should prepare yourself because this is the most silly shooting in the game. Whole game, right here, silliest thing. You get to see it firsthand. Like, I tried to have that vibe at the tournament and in my games, especially in playing Eldar at my house with people. I've tried to be like, I'm going to shoot you by fire prism. Actually, all three of them, because their rules are fine. Like, I just try to be funny about it because I'm not worried that they're going to think that I'm winning because of my list over me. Maybe they will. Don't care. I'm extremely good at 40K, and I know that. I don't need my second round opponent who's there because he is hanging with his buddies and is not at all ready to play against the level of Eldar I'm bringing, right? I'm not there to make that guy feel bad. But I am going to win because I'm competitive. So that means that I need to do that win in a way that's fun for my opponent. And I think the way to do that is the words that you use and the vibe that you bring. Mm-hmm. I think you can be fun while you're tabling someone if they have the right attitude. If there's someone who gets salty when they lose, sometimes you can't overcome that. But I think that if you actively put in effort, also if they drink and you drink, go buy them alcohol while you're wrecking them. Like, there's lots of things you can do that makes it kind of an easier experience for your opponent. So that was kind of my tip I wanted to share.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's core to how I play, right? Is somebody's going to get ahead, and depending on the vibe, a little trash talking from below, or like, something to ease, like, yeah, this isn't not going super great. Either pointing out like if it's RNG that's doing it, or if like, if you just have a list that's beyond, I think that's great. Like, nope, sorry, I got this bullshit that I brought.
Yeah.
It's a deal.
Yeah, it's weird. Eldar's good.
Yeah.
So strange.
Never
I
seen
don't
that
understand.
in the history of all 40K tournaments.
All right, let's talk about 10th edition, folks. In general, I like it. I think we all like it. There's things that are wrong with it, obviously, and everyone's talking about it, but I think lots of people haven't been able to play it enough. And they're going to maybe go to a tournament in the next few weeks and they don't feel like they've played enough and they've prepped enough. So I was trying to think last night, how do we talk this through in a way that's helpful? And I think what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the actual game rather than armies that are broken. Armies that are broken may dance their way in and out of this conversation, but in general, we're going to talk about the game itself, how it's different from ninth and what we've noticed and like kind of any tips we've seen. And we're going to do that phase by phase, but I want to start that with deployment. I don't think that there's anything that I feel is super significant in the pregame that catches me off guard other than the secondaries, which I want to talk about as part B of this topic. Is there anything in the pregame other than that you guys think is even remotely different or meaningful to talk about?
As long as what you mean by the secondaries is how you set yourself up for success.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Then, I got nothing else.
Okay. I would say the differences between like strategic reserve and like there are different reserves, and that I've definitely found people getting confused by that. Yes. And how like you can only have 500 points of strategic reserves, but half of your army can be in reserve. Like it.
Oh yeah, you basically have a no army. I also really want to point out. I guess this is the right time to point it out. Strategic reserve is much improved. On turn 2, you can bring your stuff in, not in their deployment zone. It's not like it used to be, where you had to be not on their table edge, and so it's incredibly improved. I've been using it a ton when I had low amounts of space to hide my army, and I was like, okay, I'll put a couple of Mutable Vortex beasts that are going to come in from an angle, and I think it's a really good thing that everybody should be looking at using, because of that increased space that you can come into really does make your opponent start screening right away, and then also it gives you a good place to hide, and it's not as bad as it used to be. So,
okay, yeah, that makes sense to me. So missions wise, the secondary cards are interesting. I quite like them, but I've only played tactical. I've not played fixed. I quite like them because I tend to play fast armies, and so they can kind of just figure out how to do it. I think the tossing the card away to get a CP back is really great. That's a great way to do it, because turn 1, you're probably going to get something you can't do, and turn 1, getting an additional CP is really high value. Turn 4, that additional CP is not as high a value as it is on turn 1. Trading out a card is cool. So I think they've done a lot to make the secondaries, the tactical secondaries, fair, and I think they are fair from my point of view. They're fair. There's some of them that need to be rewritten a little bit. I don't think you should be allowed to get the 8 points for being on your opponent's home objective on the first turn. I think that one should tell you to redraw.
Shuffle back in.
Yeah, shuffle. No, I'm sorry, you shouldn't have this. So I think that there's stuff like that, but I think that's great. I don't completely understand when fixed objectives is a thing. I know there's some armies that have to do it, so I'd be interested to hear your guys' thoughts on that if you saw it at all.
My experience with fixed objectives so far entirely is if somebody brings enough characters and vehicles and monsters to allow you to bring it down assassinate, that can be a somewhat okay choice.
Okay.
In particular, it's what's keeping Greater Demons from being just spammed onto the table. Because if you're like, okay, all I did is bring Greater Demons, which is, I think, a fine army, but now you just give up all of their secondary points for free. The other thing I will say, as somebody who's tried fixed objectives a few times, you immediately notice the smaller number of command points. It's fixed objectives are better if you're generating command points regularly on your own in some other fashion.
Okay.
As far as the other, actually Mitch is playing Grey Knights. He's probably the one that's going to hit on a space where you can play fixed and play the other missions. Yeah. But I bet he's also just fine at just doing the tactical deck and being fine.
I don't particularly care for the card system at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's not my jam. The problem it doesn't work with Grey Knights because Grey Knights are reactionary. Whatever I'm drawing, it's something I will be able to do that next turn, and like not as useful for me. Whereas having a fixed plan can let me really have lay out what I want to do.
I'm going to disagree. I bet in the next 5 games, you're going to start understanding the deck enough and being able to look forward enough to pull resources, knowing what cards are left and what things you might be asked to do. I saw Hank do that when he was playing them. I'm starting to get to the point where I can do that with my Thousand Suns a little bit. Like I'm staging myself for in case I draw this or that, and then getting those. I bet you'll get to that space because I think they're really flexible and you got the brain for it.
Drawing card mechanics.
Uh-huh.
I don't that's not
unfortunate for you.
Yeah, it's not my jam. Well, no, they gave me an option, right? So that's why I'm not as down on it, right? I tried it. I played 3 games fixed and 2 with cards, and what I found is I just ignored the cards entirely. Every time I got them, well, that's not what I'm doing. I can't do that right now. So I found them to not be not they were very unfun for me, but I'm glad that other people are having fun with them.
I like that there's some humor in them in that they're tarot card sized because they are kind of predicting your future. And so I enjoy that about them. I really like flipping them over and seeing what I have to do that turn, but that's because I don't do 4-turn planning as well as other people. I'm extremely good at what is the situation right now on this turn. And those cards fit really well with that because they just say, here's what you need to do to get points. You know what you need to do the rest. So that's how they work for me. But again, I play armies that are really fast and GSC doesn't care. Both GSC and Eldar can figure it out.
Yeah, the 2 most powerful armies in the game probably don't have to care as much about secondaries. It's weird.
This is what I'm saying. I didn't find them incredibly hard in Tyranids, which is the other army I've played a bunch of. Objectives.
No.
Yes.
We're still on missions.
Okay, missions.
We always talk about the secondaries because that's the new hot thing. But I think the primary missions are much better.
Yes, they are.
I like the variety in them. I'm particularly fond of the pack that they put together of missions A through M or whatever it is. Those are all interesting so far. I've played a ton of them, and there's a lot of variety there that I'm really enjoying. I think tournaments are really going to be in a good place for it. And if they add to them even more, it's going to be through the roof. So.
The mission where you get to move the centered objectives, you're trying, if you move it towards your opponent.
Oh, the push-pull thing?
The push-pull thing, I feel like they need to put a restriction on there, not allowing you to pull it towards your own. Because all I did was just grab all 3 objectives and go, I don't need to score this. I'm just going to go over and just beat the hell out of you now. And I've just made objectives not part of this game. Mm-hmm. And that seems not great.
I don't know. I haven't played enough of it to. I tried to do a similar thing where I pulled this side towards me and then pushed this side that way. So it's half and half of what you're talking about. It didn't go as well. I won, but it didn't go as well as I thought it would. So I don't know. I think that really comes together on how quick you are and how fast your opponent moves. Because that could really backfire if you pull them your direction and then they move up, take them from you, and push them into your deployment zone and score their entire primary score.
Oh, sure, but it was a situation where I knew that was not possible because he did not have any way to get past my Dread Knights.
But if you pull them back, they don't score. They have to be within 12 inches of your opponent's deployment zone to score.
I wasn't scoring them,
so nobody scores.
Nobody scores.
Oh.
That's the whole idea. I just went, cool.
Well, that's actually, tournament-wise, that's actually terrible.
Yeah.
Because you need points.
only if points matter in the tournament.
Yep.
Well, they always do for tiebreaker at the end.
Well, at the end, but...
Okay,
anyways. But all I'm trying to say is I was able to determine, hey, we're just not playing primary this game.
I love that mission. I think it's super fun.
I think it just needs a little bit of wording. Maybe when you can't pull it back, you have to push forward.
Yeah, that could be.
That's all.
Here's a PSA on missions. There's a mission where you pick up the objectives and then you put them down again. And people are like, this is a huge advantage for the person that rolls higher. Actually, you do that before you know who has what deployment zone. Mm-hmm. So, yes, you can make them all on one side of the table, and then you can lose a roll-off and lose the game. So that is actually not nearly as janky as people think it is. Lots of people are playing it that happens after they know whose deployment zone is whose.
It's a huge advantage to the weaker player who knows they're the weaker player. Because you put all the objectives in an advantageous place for you, and you flip a coin, and if you win, it makes it really hard for the better player to beat you.
I like that. I think that's
I'll take
great.
a 50-50 versus John Lennon any day. Like, that works for me.
That's great. Okay. Any other before the game things? Okay.
No, nothing's come to mind.
All right. So the command phase. Man, my one thought that I'll say about the command phase is I sure like how much shorter it is. Like, I don't want to play against an Admech player who just says vocab words at me for 5 minutes, and then suddenly all of their army has every buff.
Me out by name.
Like, oh no, I'm going to do the advanced reverse tachyon pulse on these guys,
With my
and then
transrector.
these three guys are going to get advanced mobility, and these two are going. Yeah, it's just like no.
Don't forget the rad effects. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. It's just, I don't think that's good. I think that's really hard to follow. There's very little in the command phase now, and what there is very impactful, right?
I mean,
So
also good news, you're just not going to see an AdMech player, so it's not a problem.
Right.
It's not great news, but
I mean, well, no, I mean for Colin not wanting to have that set,
yeah,
I'm
sure.
like, it doesn't matter. They're so bad that you ain't going to see it.
Yeah. There'll be someone playing AdMech at the tournament. 450 people is a lot.
Oh yeah, no, I'm joking. I'm
Yeah, I know you're joking. I'm just saying that we'll probably be some AdMech there.
Yeah, their tank didn't need to get like it was like 35 points, 40.
Oh, the Sisters players are livid
Yeah.
because their tank went up. That like everybody was taking 3 because their indirect tank was like one of the only good things in their book.
Yeah,
And they're like win rate's
And
like
it's really
35%, and they're like, here, have 100 less points. Like, no. Poor Sisters. They try so hard.
Yeah,
So yeah, I think the command phase is cool. I don't like the way it's split up, where you've got the battle shock phase of the command phase, and then inside of that you have battle shock instead of the battle shock. Like that's confusing. But once you understand the order that the things happen, and it's not confusing at all. There's just wording confusion.
Mhm.
So let's talk about battle shock. What do you guys think of battle shock?
it has had very little impact on any of my games so far. At first, when somebody would battle shock, I was like, "Oh, spend a CP and not have it happen to me." And now I only do that if they are the only person standing on a point.
Yep.
So occasionally I fail a test and it costs me a CP. That's it. That's all I got for it.
What do you think, Mitch?
yeah. The battle shock seems really like doesn't matter so far.
Yep.
Like I played against Chaos Knights, like with all the like, and they're supposed to like all the battle shocks.
Oh my god!
Like,
I played against them yesterday, and Chris tried so hard.
Battle shock. I'm like, cool. Yeah, it turns out my Grey Knights they're fine. They're just fine with it.
Yeah, he was trying so hard to just please give me an army rule. At every point the game's checking and doing all that stuff and just looking for one advantage with the Chaos Knights, and it just never actually came up.
I think there's
lose to the Chaos Knights, but that was just because I failed to kill anything for 2 turns when I should have killed at least something.
Yeah.
So it's that wet noodle thing.
I think there's 2 different things with battle shock. First of all, I think it is meaningful when it's going to stop you from scoring objectives, but that's when the 1 CP strat works. By the way, it only works at that time if you're cheating.
In your command phase.
It only works in your command phase. So if you fail battle shock at any other time, you can't use it. So it matters there because it affects how much points you get. Fine. But there's a ton of abilities in the game that force battle shock checks after your opponent scores their primaries on their turn. And that doesn't, on your turn. So it's not like they're trying to score primary right then anyways. And the battle shock will go off before they try to score. So there's all of this stuff in the game. There's a lot. Like every army has something. All of these things force battle shock on your turn. The only reason that matters is if they want to spend a strat on that unit. Period. That's it. That's the only thing it does.
Yeah. I was very excited about it because you would maybe try to afford a couple battle shocks, and if you could get one to go off, then that unit wouldn't be able to interrupt. But the game is so much about shooting and not about punching.
Yeah.
That, like, when am I in 2 combats? And if I am, when am I in 2 combats where I'm concerned about both of them fighting back at me?
Right.
Like,
Never.
It's not very realistic. So
And you're
it's for
losing that
Necron
combat
warriors.
anyway.
Yeah. If it's Stodes, you shouldn't have gone into close combat. You shouldn't be there.
You already lost.
Yeah.
No, it's for Necron warriors. We all have these tools in order to shoot the Necron warrior blob, because if it fails the battle shock test, unload the rest of your army into it.
Uh-huh.
That's what those are for.
It's good against that one thing.
Yeah.
Wah, wah. Yeah, I hate it. I think it's dumb. I don't know that I like the way that morale was, but at least morale felt meaningful.
Yeah.
This felt. Yeah, go ahead.
Good.
I was going to say it's sad that you said it felt more meaningful than morale. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No. Morale felt more meaningful than this.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's sad.
Yeah.
I like, particularly as somebody who plays on the higher number of models on a regular basis, that I don't have to keep track of how many guys died or do that math to figure out that that's the best thing that Battle Shock has done, is I can just look at my board and say, like, who's under strength? Test. Great. No more record keeping, no more keeping these models to the side before they move into the actual dead pile. None of that crap. And that is the biggest improvement. Yeah, they've streamlined it, even if they haven't made it more impactful. And I'm all for it.
Yep. Okay. We're done with command phase. On to movement. Movement is very similar. There are a few things I hate, but why don't you guys go first?
It's really cool to have Terminators that can fly.
Okay.
But it's also very nonsensical considering they're supposed to be teleporting from one place to another, and I have to measure this angle up and then over and then this angle down.
They're infantry. Why not just go through the terrain?
Yeah.
For impassable things. Yeah.
I have two things. One Mitch just mentioned, right, is the fly change. It is significantly different than what it used to be, and I'm still getting adjusted to it. Like, I often put Magnus in a place where he can't get very far because he's got to go around the building because he can't go over it, right? The other one that I think has come up, and I think this is the right place to put it, but actually go in the combat phase as well, is where your character is positioned in your unit is really important, because he will be the last casualty.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what. You don't have a choice there. So if you're trying to avoid being charged, not as big a deal these days. But also if you're like, I was playing a game yesterday where I had Aramon standing out in the open and his unit back around the corner hiding. That's backwards. I screwed that up because he's going to be out in the open and they're going to be shooting at that unit until he is dead. If I'd done it the other way around, they would have shot the unit for a while. It would have been mostly dead, and then Aramon would be behind the wall, and I'd have that objective for the rest of the game.
That's a great tip.
I think that's one of the big things I've noticed about 10th is like its own 10th edition skill.
Yeah.
Yeah, character positioning is definitely a thing.
Yeah.
With the Grey Knights units, I've been playing with the librarians. Like, they have to be able to see the thing that they want a Care Bear stare. So it's the same thing of like, okay, I can fit the whole unit there, but am I putting it the right way? Who has line of sight? Like, there is a whole new set of kind of checklists for when you're deep striking a unit. Or you're reposition. You're trying to finesse a unit into a spot where you're trying to limit what can be seen. You have to think about it a lot harder.
Yeah,
I hadn't thought about that.
I think of that as a good change. I think that's an intricate and interesting. That's an improvement. That's fun to play with. I don't like getting caught out because I screwed it up, but that's I'm excited to do it correctly next time, right?
The thing about the fly change is I feel like it makes going around the walls with your tank better than going over them a lot of the time. Mm-hmm. And what I don't like is, well,
Colin, first off, not everybody's tanks fly.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to say,
you need to check
flying units.
Also, why are Space Marine tanks on flyer bases and don't fly? Why is that? What happened to Space Marines?
They were given fly at the very beginning, but not only were they given fly, they were given a rule that said that when you charge them, you're -2 to charge.
Thingy. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was around for a little while. People got real upset and
people were displeased.
Yeah. They are serving penance for their sins still. That is what happened.
Yeah. So here's the thing that I've noticed.
Pulsars on the top of the terrain, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Here's the thing that I've noticed. So just to talk about vehicles that have fly. A Fire Prism, which is a wildly broken model that does not need to be able to move faster, but a Fire Prism is like 6 inches long. And if you take 6 inches off of its movement, because it has to go up and over a 3-inch wall or a 5-inch wall, and you take 10 inches off, either way, there isn't actually room for the model's fat ass to clear the piece of terrain. Mm-hmm. Because whether you measure from the front or the back doesn't matter. You still have to go at least 6 inches to get the actual model over the wall. And then every inch back you are from the wall is an additional inch you need to move to get your fat tank ass over the wall. I found this to not work. I found this to just not be real and have to drive around the walls. That's what I found. So fine, but then what does fly do?
Works great on infantry.
Sure, but what does fly do on vehicles?
Well, then you can fly over your own units.
Oh, no, that's not right. You can go through your own units. Hey, we didn't talk about that. That's actually one of the best quality of life things that has happened.
Yeah.
That vehicles and monsters can go through your own infantry is a big deal.
Well, your infantry can go through your infantry.
That's true.
Vehicles
the
and
only
monsters
thing that can't happen is
unless they have fly.
Oh, see, there you go.
Yeah.
So I guess it does help my Eldar parking lot, except that all the things in the parking lot are fire prisms, so I don't need to hop them over each other. Or night spinners, which also don't need to hop over each other.
Move it all.
Yeah. I found the same situation with my Dread Knight list because they all have fly when they advance. So they have 14 inches of movement fly, but like very rarely am I going over things. I'm just
Well, a lot of terrain isn't 3 inches tall. It's like 6 inches tall. And at that point, you're like, well, I just can't fly over that.
Yeah. I played on a piece of terrain on a table where they'd done really tall wall, like 1.5 foot tall walls. And I was like, Magnus isn't flying over anything.
Like, he's got to fly around the walls.
Like, he can't even get to the top of that.
Yeah, and that's actually a concern. I'll tangent just for a second. I really like the new GW train. One concern I have is that I think it's really harsh on anybody who's using a lot of big bases. I actually think Baby Knights might end up having a really hard time with it. I don't know that. But what I did see is I played against Nidzilla, which is a list that we had seen. It went undefeated at an RTT like 2 weekends ago. It is what we have seen from Nidzilla. What we had seen is that it was quite good. Maybe A tier, like really quite good. But I played against Nidzilla on the new terrain, and it felt bad for them because they just couldn't get to me with any speed of any kind because they kept having to go around everything. Or they'd get stuck in a hallway because a lot of those boards have hallways. And then I would just be like, okay, you've moved in. I'm going to reactive move the Rangers into the hallway so you can't move past them with your next unit. Like, just really, there's a lot of feel bads there, but which is also movement. So I thought I'd mention it.
Yeah, I think that in particular, that's as crowded as boards are. I think we need to all be thinking about like how many channels are there and how many big things can I actually push through.
Right.
I'm accustomed to this. Orcs have always had this problem of like getting channeled, but more and more people are going to be dealing with it, I think.
Yeah. I don't think there's anything else on movement that I'm remembering. Oh, well, we should talk about Overwatch.
No, should we?
Because it's really dumb. And Tacoma has just decided to rule it in a really, really not good way. So you're supposed to only be able to Overwatch once per turn. But there are these people that say, if a strat has already been used, I can use it anyways. And I presumed that did not overcome you can only ever Overwatch once per turn. But GW said, no, you're actually wrong. This mechanic that you hate actually is going to happen more often. I think Overwatch is not okay. That's my opinion of it, but I shouldn't go first on everything. So you guys talk about Overwatch first, and then I'll share my thoughts.
Oh, well, I'll let Mitch go. But he's got to unmute himself if he's going to do it.
Sorry, the dog was whining. Man, overwatching with indirect is fun. Especially when you auto wound on 6s to hit. It's a real good time for guard. It seems really silly. I do like having more reactive things in the game.
Yes, agreed.
Right now, it feels like there needs to be some additional limitations or caveats. So Grey Knights don't have their version of the if a stratagem has been used already this turn. Each one of those guys can only do that once per game. It's not every round that you can just recycle a strat. And I think that is a much more balanced way to do that. So it can be a clutch thing you do once that you paid for. But being able to just do that over and over again, not good. Very bad.
Yeah.
That's my nuanced take.
I've been playing Thousand Suns. I have a 10-man brick rubrics with Aramon. He gives them +1 to wound. and they reroll ones to wound, or full rerolls if you're on an objective. And one of the cabals lets you do the play a stratagem twice trick. The amount of cover that those dudes provide, like they're going to step out, they're going to blow one thing away, and then nobody gets to come within 12 inches of that place, or also they'll get blown away because it's a full free shooting phase. Like if you try to push into the center on them,
You're talking about flamers. You didn't say that.
Yeah, they're all 20. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that I'm going to get 3 shooting phases for 1 CP, right? I'm going to do it on my turn, then I'm going to do it twice on your turn if you come at me. And then if you don't, I lose some cabal points, but like I'm fine.
I think they said that the same unit can't Overwatch twice in the Tacoma errata, by the way. Yeah. I think we should look at that. But I think they did say that. Don't worry, everybody. Yeah. Don't worry. As far as I know, Eldar doesn't have this. The Wraith Knight will not be Overwatching twice.
This in our first game yesterday, and I will take some small portion of Peter winning yesterday. I showed him how to use Ursula to let his tanks Overwatch twice, and they're fine to just there's so many bullets. They're just like, you know what, something that moves within 24 inches that I can see. Great, let's just go.
Yep.
Just look at all this extra shooting that guard all of a sudden has. It was fantastic.
I asked him about that last night, and he said, "Well, my army can only win by shooting, and those CP gives me more shots.
Yeah, shoot more." Go.
Great logic, honestly.
Yeah, we couldn't find any good rerolls or like torrent weapons that were worthwhile, but just have a lot of bullets seems fine.
Yep, or full rerolls.
I mean, just doing it on a Baneblade chassis is what I'm doing.
He had a Shadow Sword, and that was fine. Like, that's a lot of heavy bolters.
Yeah,
surprise you lose a dude isn't comfortable.
He had a really funny thing happen against the Eldar player in the final round, because the Eldar player moved his Fire Prism up on the first turn, top of 1, to see the Shadow Sword, but he moved within 24 inches so that he could use his Shuriken Cannon.
Nope.
No, and the Shadow Sword overwatched it and rolled 6s on its big gun. Boom! Got Fire Prism gone. Yeah. And that meant that the other 2 Fire Prisms didn't get to shoot, because the Fire Prism that poked out was no longer alive.
It's also most of his tanks have lethal hits if they don't move. So you don't even go to a wound phase. You're just like, if I get a 6, take a save.
Well, so it actually gets grosser than that. Because they're lethal hits, but with the Baneblade chassis, you can either have all the heavy flamers or all the heavy bolters. If you go with all the heavy bolters, 6s to hit, auto wound, and generate extra hits.
Oh yeah, because they're sustained as well.
Yeah. So then they're twin linked, so you're rerolling all of your wounds as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're getting really consistent.
Yeah.
Or an inconsistent fire phase, you're doing all white.
Yeah. It gets very nasty very quickly. For sure.
Another way to look at that is that basically the heavy bolter is Overwatch on 5s. Is another way to look at that. The 6s exploding is the same as 5s, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, yeah.
Well, for math, but not for
not for how it feels. So Overwatch is my issue with Overwatch is that close combat is already bad, and making it so that you can just gun down close combat units as they attempt to get anywhere near close to you is really rough. Mm-hmm. And a lot of those close combat units are like T3, and they're just like, here we come. We were hiding, but now, we died.
Having 2 flamers hidden amongst your army and being like, no, Eldar won't come in here and punch us. So,
it's just really silly. And the 24-inch range thing is just like, okay, my Wraith Knight's watching the table. Oh, shoot that thing. Like, it's
over.
Yeah.
Because I watched. There's one more thing I want to get into with Guard is when we go to the Baneblade chassis that have firing decks, you then get to Overwatch with everything.
All the guns are in there, yeah.
So
you start pushing it to like massive degrees.
Well, but you can have 9 mortars inside. Yeah. So now you can't even charge that tank from behind a wall without worrying about Overwatch. You can't even show up behind a wall.
If
you can't even move to a position within 24 inches of that tank without getting something shot at you.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Any movement?
Yeah.
All right.
Pretty important phase. Get some.
Yeah. Psychic phase is gone.
The second best shooting phase is movement phase.
You say that, but at the end of the movement phase and the beginning of the shooting phase, Thousand Suns sure do a lot of things. It's not a psychic phase.
But they don't do it in the psychic phase. I really like the spells just being abilities on the units, and I like the offensive spells being offensive. I like that too.
I'll say I like it better than I thought I would.
Yeah.
I was prepared to be upset about it, and I'm enjoying it just fine. Other than sort of what Mitch was talking about earlier, is it takes a long time to learn all of the abilities for all the units. So I've definitely dropped lots of things over the course of play. But I think I'll get proficiency with the army, and that'll be fine.
The thing that I think is so interesting is it hadn't occurred to me how silly it was that all the psychic powers were mortals when they were like called like flame bolt. Like,
yeah.
You mean my armor doesn't help me against this fire that's hitting me? I guess not.
No.
So I kind of like that a lot of those powers now care about defensive ability. It also means that you aren't just mortaling people off the table. You got to do that in other mechanics.
Most of us.
Yeah. I don't. I just keep doing mortals with those.
Yeah. The two psychic army guys are like, what are you talking about?
Well, I play Eldar. I'm not going to say that I don't do mortals to people.
Yeah, exactly.
I think I might win the mortal.
We wish we could do that.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I top out at 36. Like, if everything goes perfectly.
How do you get anywhere?
I don't know what the limit to how many mortals the Wraith I can do.
Let's talk about Thousand Sun Sorcerer.
Yeah.
I think he can do like theoretically 48.
Nice.
That's very impossible, but that's his limit for a 90-point dude.
I'm not sure what unit has that many wounds.
Nothing.
Unless Terminators almost.
Terminators have 30. That's not.
Yeah, you need like.
You would need a unit of 10. You would need a unit of 10 4-wound models that has a character with it.
I got this lying around.
All right, so psychic phase, fine. Shooting. Hey, look, it's the main phase of the game now.
Yeah.
Boy, is shooting important. Poor close combat.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything. I mean, we could talk about towering, but we really already did. Everybody has cover all the time.
Except for all the weapons that ignore cover.
Exactly. Yeah.
Actually, I mostly agree with your statement and the sentiment of it, but I have found that I have learned to move and consider whether they're going to have cover.
Yep.
And I'm removing more and more cover from people who come to the midfield. If somebody's in the backfield and they're playing appropriately, I'm not going to be taking that cover off. But like I can get the cover off of the people who are engaging.
Mm-hmm.
But that also means I'm moving into weird places. And as we've talked about, like if you're pushing screening and all that kind of stuff, it's more and more weird places. I think it's significant. Sometimes it's best just let them have the cover. Maybe just turn off their armor save, like whatever you need to do.
I found with Grey Knights that I am able to remove cover often just because of how mobile I am. Mm-hmm. And I'm able to work the angles. So if you don't and I can just show up 3 inches away. It's very hard for you to have cover.
That's a pretty good power.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying is like you can, but it doesn't necessarily mean like now you got to do that and you're trying to do this mission thing and you're trying to be in this position. Like there's a lot of things that have to come into place and sometimes you have to just give it up.
Well, yeah, no, what I was going to say is, but to do that, I'm often not in cover to remove their cover, right? Like I can get the angle, but like I need to evaluate whether or not it's worth giving up that durability for the next turn for myself. So there is like I do like that the choices that I'm having to make there, but I don't feel like it's cover is all the time. But it is a lot. It is a lot.
And I think that is indicative also. Colin is playing a parking lot full of guns.
Yeah.
And his main opponent is probably another parking lot full of guns. There will always be cover.
Sure.
We're trying to skirmish around the middle of the board where that does happen. So it's a mix of like armies and stuff that makes a difference too.
Makes sense.
Yep. And Cheat Steal the Cult just ignore cover the turn that they come in, so they just don't care.
It wouldn't matter. They have AP5 anyway. Who cares?
Yeah, they stack their AP up so high.
You guys have AP?
Yeah.
Great night player.
GSC is funny about AP. They could literally go at the start of their turn. How many AP would I like on this?
Mm-hmm. Jesus Christ.
Let's figure out how much AP we're going to need. So shooting, real strong.
Yeah.
I think the GW train will help because it was I'm helping my friend Jason learn how to play Ultramarines, and his tanks had a much harder time seeing things to shoot without dying than I thought they would.
In the game that him and I played, he had to expose them to threat every time he wanted to
do anything.
Yeah. And that I mean, like at that point, I would consider whether I want them or not.
We've got the thing that many people are getting wrong. Ajax, thank you so much. Referencing the Get Started guide, don't you pick your first 2 secondaries when you play tactical? No, you don't. Oh, I just broke my headphones. I got all excited and I broke my headphones. Okay.
Colin,
you don't.
Smash.
So the wording is not great. You pick 2 and you put them face down. And then when it's time to do fixed, or to do tactical rather, you shuffle them back in and draw.
Yeah. It's a
the
way
reason you do that. Go ahead, Chuck.
Go ahead. No,
go ahead.
It's a way to keep things incredibly fair. If your opponent is picking fixed, they put down 2 fixed ones. If they're not, you put down 2 tacticals, and then you show them to each other to declare what you're doing. It's not
to
important.
prevent one player operating with extra information.
That's exactly right.
I just tell people I'm doing fixed or tactical. There's the amount of information that could possibly means nothing to a decision they can make at that point. So I'm not.
We're also just not playing at the level like where that could possibly matter.
Yeah. maybe a year from now when we understand things better, that like is somehow impactful, but I doubt it.
Okay. Anything else about the shooting phase? It's real good.
Yeah.
Pew
Okay.
pew.
Stay behind a building. Then they can only shoot you a little.
Charge phase. Having to base is rough.
Yeah.
It is another reason why I think close combat is bad. Because it takes away so many options for how you position that it makes you I think it makes you leverage yourself into risk in a way that isn't fair to close combat. What do you guys think?
You're already risking your unit. You always have to put your unit out there in order to get to close combat. If you fail the charge, then you lose it. There's already an element of risk there. My close combat unit should do more damage than your shooting unit because I have to risk more, right? And in addition to that, now I roll super hot on my charge roll, and I'm sad because now I've charged past the objective that I wanted to also hold. And if I don't kill your unit, I'm not pushing back towards it. And if I do kill your unit, maybe. But what if there's somebody else nearby? Like it hamstrings my choices. And the shooting army moves the distance they're going to move, and then they shoot. There's nothing that's going to take away their planning from them. And I think it's one of several different nails that put close combat in a really bad place.
And can't you? I might be wrong on this, but can't you Overwatch? If I declare a charge, can't you Overwatch with a unit I'm not charging?
Yeah.
Yep.
And so that just means that the really good gun units that are really good at Overwatch just get another opportunity to stop close combat. That's what that means.
It's the third best shooting phase, Colin.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the case.
Can we have combat is the third best shooting phase as a t-shirt?
Well, actually, I'm sorry. I thought you meant that the Overwatching in the charge phase was the third best shooting phase.
Yeah.
Combat is clearly fourth.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, fourth best.
Yeah. I apologize. That's the fourth best shooting phase.
Honestly, a shirt that says that the fight phase is the fourth worst shooting phase, I think it's a great shirt.
Yeah.
I'm writing it down.
So, I think that's very bad. I think it continues with the pile in and consolidate rules, where it's removing choice and ability from the close combat player. Don't get me wrong, you still can set yourself up for success, but like that charge move, the distance that you roll makes a huge difference in whether you meet that success or not.
Mm-hmm.
I think in order for a close combat unit to be good, it starts to need to have like a charge differential. Like I want to say I have the ability to roll the charge and then add up to 3 or remove up to 3 from it, so that I can start to control what my unit is doing again. So I don't know. I'm displeased.
I feel like they've removed nuance and technicality in a place where they think that they're making this easier, but by making it obligatory and rigid, it's actually creates you can see the things you can't do. So it's highlighting all the choices you can't make. And to go back to what we were talking about with the movement phase, where the nuances of where you put your characters and stuff, I was really looking forward to that same kind of nuance with characters being in units for close combat. Like we have close combat precision weapons. Like, but the way that it's kind of been done, it feels much more like, no, you have to like straight lines, do this, force here, get to base. Like, it doesn't necessarily feel. I don't feel like I'm orchestrating the melee. I just feel like I'm kind of following the flow chart for it.
Yeah, you have to start in the movement phase to set yourself up for a charge, and then if the charge goes way high, it screws it up. And obviously, if it goes too low, then you don't make it. Right? And it's just like you're trying to shoot an even smaller and smaller gap to get the full amount of success. So that's mostly what I see out of the charge phase, and it is another opportunity for Overwatch if somehow they missed it in the movement phase.
Mm-hmm.
I've taken a new angle to my chair so people can see the magnificent Gusta.
You got to get the right angles.
Exactly right. Yeah, I agree with everything you guys said. I think you also basically just talked about the fight phase as well. I think what bothers me the most is that there's tech in there that's still really unfair that most people don't understand. I think that's what I don't like the most. Like, a lot of it's limited and on rails, and then there's still stupid stuff you can do by positioning units weird and being like, okay, well, now you have to pile into this unit you didn't charge. Sorry. Like, there's a lot of like, oh, yeah, you don't want to fight my unit? Well, I hope you don't want to pile in then. Like, there's a lot of that I think is real feel bad. I think if you were to interweave a beat stick close combat unit with a unit that people want to charge, I don't think that unit's ever going to get killed by in close combat.
I've been like, the Terminators do better when they're standing next to Magnus. So oftentimes, if somebody wants to go into one or the other of them, they charge in, and then so heroics become super good. Also, really good when I can get a strat for free. Well, what's really interesting about that space is sometimes, like, I had a person charge Magnus yesterday, but he got a short charge, so his unit is strung out from Magnus, so only a couple of the guys are engaged. So when the Terminators moved in, it was a bad move to bring the Terminators into the fight because it's Chosen and they're going to rip them apart. But I was able to stop all the Chosen from getting to Magnus. So I lost like 5 Terminators instead of losing Magnus, right? And so, like, because it's all forced as far as how he has to move and if he's going to, and then just everybody being able to heroic is a pretty big deal. But that also goes the same way, right? Like, if somebody's like, I think I can take the Terminators, and suddenly Magnus jumps into the back of their unit, and like, I'm going to intentionally split where you are, because nobody's going to make, like, they have to get a really hard charge roll in order for everybody to get into base to base to start. So I think there's a lot of nuance to that sort of thing. But I shouldn't, like, spending 2 CP for that is a pretty rough cost for most people.
Yep, I've not done it yet.
Yeah, I don't think if I wasn't playing those 2 units together that I would have probably ever done it either.
Yeah. All right. There's the fight phase. That's it. That's all the phases, right?
What about the morale phase? Oh, wait.
Yeah, no, there's no morale phase.
That's just where we feel bad because the edition isn't as developed as we would have liked.
Yeah, we'll get there.
I know. It's a little half.
That's
it's
the
very
next
half
phase.
There is a question.
Oh, no.
John says.
Oh,
hold on.
You're here.
There you are.
There it goes. Are you guys finding more games or just done by top of 3? What do you think, Mitch?
No.
Okay.
No.
Chuck?
My 5 games, all of them were much longer than that.
Yeah.
Yes to some games. I think there's certain matchups that are just done by top of 3. Some of that is the imbalance that we're seeing. Some of it also is like, I don't know. I tend to learn by taking it to the face. So I've moved out and gotten shot off the table in no time and learned that you just can't. So those games were very quick. I would say towards the end of the dozen or so games that I have played, it's not the case. In particular, I would say most of my games have come down to, like, who's trying to struggle for points towards the end has been great. But I have had several of those where, like, this person's 25 points ahead, and they don't even know if they necessarily feel like they're that far ahead. I've had to point out to lots of opponents who are really concerned about the game that they're, I'm like, dude, you're 30 points ahead of me. I'm never going to catch you. Just slow down and have a good time.
That's what the Gambit's for.
Yeah, no.
They didn't even allow Gambits at the event I played. They're like, nope.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're like,
they won't let you fall into that trap.
Hey, it's not a trap if you're lucky.
It still sort of is. I don't know.
I haven't really even paid attention to them, and in the games I've played, we haven't even talked about them. Like we just flew right past the Gambit phase without anybody saying anything.
I tend to remember them around turn 4 instead of
but I think it's top of 3.
Yeah,
it's like it's way too early to know if you should make that gamble.
Yeah,
make that Gambit. So yeah, I agree with Chuck. I think that if you have a mismatch, then against one of the if you're playing an army that's not top tier against Eldar, your game's over fast. Same thing with Space Marines, same thing with T-Sons. These armies are going to shoot you off the table. Fine, right? But if you are playing armies that are even remotely competitive to each other, which I don't mean that you're the same, but like you're not playing against Eldar or Gene Stealer Cult. Then I think the game absolutely goes a long time. We've had multiple games decided in the final round. In fact, Chuck and I just played a game of Eldar versus T-Sons where it was a 5-point differential at the end, something like that. It was very close. And at the RTT, my GSC versus Knights game was 5 points as well, 5 points off. Yeah. So those are both games that came down to the wire.
I will say I do think most of my games have been done in 2 hours.
Yeah.
Which is quite nice, enjoying that quite a bit.
Yeah. I'm actually wondering if I should bring a book to Tacoma.
There'll be so much social to do.
But I'm going to get tired of social after playing 90 minutes of every 3-hour round with Eldar. Like, I'm either going to die or kill everything, and it's going to take like an hour and a half. Like, if you kill all the elves, you win. If the elves kill you, I win. Like, it's not really a thing. Okay. Thanks for the question, John. I appreciate that. Josh Begwell asks, where do I find the Tacoma Open fact? I have no idea. I saw a snippet of the ruling we were talking about. I saw it yesterday going around.
I don't know if they have a good communication path for it. So
no, I don't know.
You will probably find out about it during opening ceremonies.
Yeah. Is that going to be like the Olympics where they'll be like...
Oh, I hope so.
Will there be like trapezes and
but instead of
and stuff?
An Olympic torch, it's a burning old world army, as is tradition.
brought into the arena via servo scroll.
Okay, there's a squat joke there somewhere, but I couldn't find it fast enough. Yeah. So, or maybe Harlequins. Harlequin players real unhappy. And I don't think that's unfair.
Do you mean Eldar players?
No, Harlequin players.
Their army just disappeared.
Their army's gone.
I mean,
sorry.
You mean Eldar players? Because Harlequins aren't a faction. They don't have a codex.
Yeah,
they don't, and they don't have faction rules. I mean, they use fate dice, which is good, but
it's a pretty good one.
Their stuff is also expensive.
Here's the deal: even if they had all of that stuff, they'd be T3 trying to get to close combat.
Yeah,
it wouldn't matter
where they're going to hit at strength 4 with no pluses to wound.
Yeah,
once they get there,
even
because that's close combat now.
Fine.
What?
Even if they had a +1 to wound, it's not gonna.
Yeah. If your army can't win because your opponent has a dreadnought, you're done.
That's funny. Okay, I think we're good.
So
the next episode will be in 2 of Tacoma Open.
Yeah,
the way that we do it, OG style. We're going to dig through the games and talk about them. I want to take photos at the tournament. I want to take photos throughout my games so I can put them up and we can look at them when we talk through the games. Why is it so hard to remember to do that? I've wanted to do that for months.
You're in the middle of playing a game, you're competitive, and you have ADHD.
It is not a mystery. Possibly one of the most intricate games that you can play on the entire planet. Maybe you forget.
Clearly I forget. There's no maybe on the forgetful.
I tend to take one picture, like at the beginning. I'm like, I'm going to do it too. I'm going to take one picture, and at the end, I go, "Damn it!"
Set a recurring alarm every 30 minutes of your phone yelling at you.
I do not need that anxiety in my life.
No. Oh my god, am I late for the airplane? Yeah. The only time
it's the noise you use to wake up. It'll be fine.
Oh yeah, great. I'm never unhappy with that noise. Never even one time.
No.
So we'll be back in 2 weeks. We'll grab Hank. Hank's going to play Custodes at the tournament. So that'll be fun. We'll grab Hank and have him come and talk about his games as well. So we'll have Stodes, something, and Eldar. I think Chuck's feeling a little listless at the moment.
We'll see.
I think you got like the worst matchups possible. I really do.
I have Guard and Chaos Knights.
It's a fair point.
Are my worst cast matches? I don't think they're going to do better in a Gene Stealer Colt and
Eldar.
Eldar. They've definitely got a problem with Custodes. So where am I headed?
I'm really surprised that guard was that hard.
Well, I think
Because
it's
they-
mostly because Peter rolled a 6, and if I'm going to be playing Thousand Suns, I want to be Magnus forward, and if he's just going to take a dozen mortal wounds every once in a while, he's not going to last. And
Oh,
then
does
I'm
the
not gonna
Shadow
get
Sword
paid.
do mortal wounds? Is that what the deal is?
It's devastating if he rolls a 6. So, and I don't know if you know this, but the rest of those tanks shoot pretty hard, so that finishes the job.
Huh. Okay. It's interesting because you had such a difficult experience, but the general demeanor of the everybody is that Thousand Suns are one of the best armies in the game.
Oh,
But it sounds like they didn't feel like that at all.
I
yesterday.
think part of it is I'm in more of a casual space than I've been in a long time, and casual for me means pushing my chips into the center a lot of the time. And you think you have to be incredibly patient and reserved, and skip whole turns and do nothing for Thousand Suns to be functional. And I can't. I just can't do it.
All right. Fair enough. Well, I think we're good. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. He's Mitch, and he's Chuck, and I'm calling because someone has to be, and we'll be back in 2 weeks. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye now.
See you then.
Bye.
Oh, hey, if you're at the Tacoma Open, come say hi to us.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
sure.
Please do.
Yeah.
I accept all fist bumps.
Oh, wow. That could get out of hand.
Anybody who wants to bump my fist, I will bump it with you. Bye, everybody.
Bye. See you later.